The Lenni Lenape people inhabited the banks of the Crum Creek, where I'm looking out now, in a forested area adjacent to the Swarthmore College campus. Crum is a Swedish word for crooked. That was the name given to this area, also called the Crum Woods, by white colonial settlers in the early part of the 1600s, at a time when there was considerable conflict during the contact between white settlers on the one hand and the indigenous people who lived in this area on the other. The Lenni Lenape people had existed and coexisted with other indigenous people largely peacefully along the banks of this creek, building small huts, engaging in local commerce, making meals from fishing and hunting and small-scale agriculture, and living peacefully with themselves and with their human and more than human neighbors for thousands of years prior to white contact. But during the time of European exploration in the Americas, the Lenape people were decimated, in part by armed conflict and in part by European diseases like smallpox that were brought across the Atlantic and had terrible impacts on the local people. During this time of first contact, William Penn, wealthy English individual and nobleman, was deeded large tracts of land in what is today eastern Pennsylvania, where we are along the banks of the Crum Creek. And William Penn tried to initiate what he called a holy experiment, in which he tried to set up peaceful relations with the indigenous people. That experiment failed, as it had failed earlier, from early contact first with the Dutch and then with the Swedes and later with people like William Penn, the English. And with the failure of that holy experiment, there was widespread killing of the Lenape and other people in this area, including a horrible massacre in the latter part of the 1700s by a group of Scots-Irish people that called themselves the Paxton Boys. And the people that originally inhabited the slopes and the banks of what we call today the Crum Creek, these people were eventually driven north along the creek, a creek and an area that they called Okahocking, later then called the Crum Woods. But as these people moved throughout the Okahocking Creek Reserve area, they were then pushed westward. And today the Lenape live primarily in places like Oklahoma in particular, Wisconsin, and Ontario, Canada. The Crum Creek, where we are today, is this place that the Lenape inhabited but were eventually driven away from through political machinations and outright violence. But the Crum Creek, after the time of William Penn's failed holy experiment and the Paxton Boys' violence, in the 1800s, the Crum Creek and this surrounding area was purchased by the Society of Friends to build a college, came to be known as Swarthmore College, established in 1864. Swarthmore College not only wanted to build a campus of cultivated horticulture, it also wanted to set aside on both sides of the Crum Creek land that would be preserved in perpetuity as wild space. That wild space today is the landscape of what we might call the wounded sacred, to pick up on the Lenape notion that all things are sacred. The Okahocking people, or the Lenape people, were, to use a technical term from religious studies and cultural anthropology, these people were animists. They were animists in the sense that they believed that everything that is ensouled. Everything that is filled with spirit. They would refer to, in their ritual practices, the Great Spirit that infused all things with life and vitality and purpose. All things, rocks and trees and flowers and other plants, bodies of water, insects, animals, birds, and the great atmosphere above us. That worldview that all things are sacred and are infused with spirit or great spirit was the source of the conflict between the Lenape on the one hand and white settlers on the other. Today, the Lenape people, also referred to as the Delaware Indians, continue to thrive in communities of vision and hope that emerge from beautiful but damaged places like the Crum Woods. And I hope this brief presentation gives you some sense of the beauty and the trauma that characterizes this particular place, the ancient Lenape homeland, now referred to as the Crum Woods.